All right, so one of the first metrics we're going to talk about that is one of the most important metrics within SEO to take a look at is a little bit of an umbrella called engagement metrics. The things that are under that umbrella are going to be session duration, pages per session, bounce and exit rates. So the quality and user friendliness of your site is going to be determined by this data. Users will show search engines the value of your site through staying on your site longer, through sharing your site, through returning again, through not leaving and bouncing back to the search results and clicking on your competitor. So let's kind of talk through what these metrics are, just to kind of educate you guys for anyone who doesn't know or anyone who needs a little bit of a refresher. Session duration, exactly how it sounds. It is the amount of time a user will spend on your site, their entire session duration. So this shows search engines, the user found what they're looking for if they stay long. If they don't stay long, search engines usually don't favor that. I will say there's a caveat to that. It's very dependent on industry. So if your industry is all about a buyer journey, where pretty much any of your consumers are already in that evaluation stage of their buyer journey, they're not in the informational stage, they're kind of higher level, they know what they need, they know what they want, and they're ready just to evaluate their options, you probably won't see super long session duration. So definitely make sure that you don't have a goal to bump up your session duration astronomically if your industry doesn't call for it. So just be very aware that these are subjective. They are important as long as you know what kind of your industry standard and average is, then these can be really helpful as you're setting goals. There's also pages per session. This is how many pages a user visited during their session. Again, setting a goal here, you really want to have that industry average. But to search engines, a lot of times, industry dependent, the more pages, the better. That kind of proves out and indicates the value of your content on the site. So if you are a company that notices that your audience has a wide breadth of where they are in their buyer journey, meaning a lot of them do start out in the informational phase where they need to visit your site, get the information, read up on you, read about your value, read your content, and then they kind of leave for a bit, marinate on it, come back, kind of ready for more evaluation, that type of thing. You will definitely be someone who wants to pay attention to pages per session. If you find that your audience does need a little bit more hand-holding, a little bit more love, a little bit more information, that's definitely a metric to look to. And then lastly, this is something that everyone should be paying attention to no matter your industry. There's an average, it's kind of across the board, which is bounce and exit rates. B2B companies usually sit around a 61% average. The perfect average is around the 40 to 50% in bounce rate, but over time, as studies have been done, we do notice that B2Bs get a different bounce rate. It can be kind of for different reasons that we have higher average bounce rate than other sites do in other industries. But B2Bs can often be up against, obviously, a lot of competitors. They can also be up against educational sites, wiki pages, things like that. So we definitely have a lot to battle for within search results as B2Bs. So that's probably why we do see that higher bounce rate average than normal. But usually at the end of the day, a low bounce rate indicates a user found what they need. So a lot of times a bounce rate can mean a few different things. This is when a user is quickly leaving the site. And that can be because your site is not user-friendly. Maybe your site speed is not so hot and it took too long for the page to load, so they got impatient and left right away and went to one of your competitors. A bounce rate could also mean maybe the wrong page is ranking for the wrong keyword. It should mean that you should kind of check in on your site speed, then you should kind of check in on the search results of the keyword that page is ranking for, and see what those results are. What results are surrounding you on that page? Does it make sense for you to be there? Does that audience make sense for you to target? So those are a few things you should think through when you see those higher bounce rates. Either we need to check on site speed. All right, if that's okay, then that means we maybe need to do a content pivot. We maybe need to pivot this page to be more targeted towards the audience we actually want. So to wrap this up for engagement metrics, make sure you understand your industry average, set feasible goals for your unique industry and your unique site, and just kind of pay attention to these metrics because these metrics do matter and are ranking factors for you. So they are important to keep an eye on. Just again, make sure you're setting feasible goals for you as a unique company within your unique industry. Next, we're going to talk about domain authority, often seen in online, on blogs, etc., within the SEO and digital marketing industry as just DA. So let's give a little background about domain authority. DA is ranked on what's called a logarithmic scale. So what that means is it's much easier to rise when you're in authority lower than 50, but once you get 50 or above and you start to climb that way, it's going to get like quicksand. It's a lot harder to get those types of domain authorities. So here's what you need to know, really, when you're going after targeting domain authority. Domain authority is a ranking factor. It's an important ranking factor. And if you are someone who does try to keep up with op-eds on all kinds of digital marketing sites and business sites who talk about SEO and domain authority, I'm sure you see probably every few months someone's writing about link building's dead, don't do link building. I do want to stress those are opinion pieces, and we do want to make sure that we still think about domain authority and know that no matter what all of those pieces say, they are opinion, and domain authority at the end of the day is still a ranking factor, so it still matters. So please don't be ignoring domain authority because you saw a hot piece on why domain authority isn't what you should focus on. Again, it's just subjective, just like anything else, like I said, of setting feasible goals for your unique site in your unique industry, etc. This is the same kind of thing. What you need to know is, are you up to par with your competitors? And if you aren't, that should be something you focus on, because if your competitors are currently outranking you, getting better search visibility than you, and they have higher domain authority than you, that's definitely going to be something you want to focus on, because that could be the ticket to getting a little bit more competitive and really getting up there in search visibility next to or above your competitors. So a couple of things to know about domain authority and kind of attacking that. Only link building can really help move the needle for your domain authority. So it is a strategy that you need to utilize if domain authority is your target goal to affect over the next quarter, over the next few quarters here. And what you need to know is, just like we talked about earlier, quality versus quantity. When you are going into a link building campaign, you don't want to think about the amount of links, you just want to think about and set goals for the quality of the links you're getting. This means these are going to be a lot longer term strategies. These strategies are going to take time. They are going to take that committed buy-in, like I've talked about. And you never know how quickly or how slowly these strategies will work. So setting goals can be pretty tough because of that nature of link building. So everyone really needs to be in it for the long haul. Pro tip, definitely be wary of any agency or any SEO who promises you a certain amount of links. Again, it is not about the amount of links. And if you are just trying to get a ton of low quality links, it's actually really going to hurt you in the long run. Google's AI is getting smarter and smarter by the day and does detect shady strategies like that and will penalize anyone who is implementing any sort of shady strategies. On top of that, low quality domain authority sites are not going to help you move the needle the way you want. So you'd rather have a handful of high domain authority sites that have a great audience that can bring you a nice amount of referral traffic that could actually turn into a qualified lead in the pipeline, rather than just having, a ton of links every month, 10 to 20 links every month that don't bring you an audience that matters at all to you at the end of the day. And then set competitive goals. So like I said, because of the nature of link building, it can be really tough to set those goals. So when you do, have a competitive mindset. What I like to do when I try to guide a client to setting a goal for domain authority is making sure, one, we're setting one that's feasible. We don't want to set a goal we're not going to reach. And domain authority is a very, very tough strategy to attack, but it's necessary. Definitely a necessary evil. So when you are looking to set a goal, because most of us obviously need to set goals for our strategies when we do present these strategies to our companies and to our leadership. And we need to make sure that we have the correct route to get to that goal. So the easiest way to do that is to look at your competitors' domain authorities and average them out. And that's your first goal. And depending on how big of a leap it is, will depend on when you can assume to kind of come close to reaching it. If it's a smaller leap, you may be able to get it within 3 to 6 months. If it's a bit of a medium-sized leap, definitely 6-month minimum. If it's a pretty large leap, if you are super new in the industry and it's going to take big pushes, big swings and strategies to do it, but a lot of pacing and waiting around for it as you do attack these strategies, you want to make an end of year goal then. So just dependent, like I said, on where you are now, how big of the leap it is to get to the average of your competitors currently. You want to make sure you're setting that feasible goal. So like I said, if it's kind of a small leap, 3 to 6 months, medium leap, about 6 months minimum. And if it is a large leap, for whatever reason, you definitely want to give yourself the full year and make it an end of year goal to keep an eye on. So the next thing I want to talk about is going to be search visibility. Search visibility is a term that is going to be used a lot more than your ranks. Ranks are kind of becoming less and less important. It is more about the actual visibility in search. And there's a couple reasons for that. One would be the huge explosion of Google features in the last few years. Google features are often considered what's called spot zero. If you look at the top of a search result page and you see that little featured snippet, that call out box there that answers a question, offers guidance on a topic, that is reached not just by the #1 spot. It can be reached by anyone who is better qualified to give a response or some sort of snippet explanation, guidance on the topic that was searched. So what's great about this is, like I said, you don't have to be at #1 to grab a Google feature spot. And it's not just snippets anymore. We've got knowledge graphs on the side. We've got product carousels. We've got featured videos. We've got featured questions where you see that box and there's a few different common asked questions. And different sites are picked to answer those questions because they seem to be the most qualified to do so. This is a really, really important feature. These Google features are now taking over, and much more important than trying to attack getting a particular numerical goal reached. So it's no longer about saying, I need to be in the top 3 for these 10 keywords or else. Really, it's never been about that, but I want to stress that even more now because we have so much more opportunity that is so much better. These features, even speaking personally, when I do search, I trust those Google features a lot. It helps me get quick information. It helps me see what result was the most lucrative for most searchers. So I do look to those a lot. And it is proven out that these features can bring in hordes of traffic that you wouldn't have seen otherwise. Because the thing that gets really hard nowadays is that features and ads can actually push the top 5 down below the fold, dependent on your screen size. So these features are going to be so important for your visibility. Just in general, your content quality to reach these features is what you need to do to attack really getting better visibility. So these are such better opportunities for us. And just remembering that visibility is much more important than numbers. Definitely you have to get that buy-in for this and set goals like researching the keywords you're trying to target, which ones have Google features, which of those Google features are featuring your competitors or someone you would be able to compete with to grab those featured spots. And then telling your leadership, telling your company that your goal is not numbers. Your goal is to refresh or make new pages that will compete and grab a Google featured spot and list out the 3 to 5, keywords and their Google features that you're trying to target and get to work. It's just going to be so much more important than those numbers. That visibility is really what you want to have over numerics. And last but certainly not least is going to be sessions and traffic. And the reason it's last is because, like anything within SEO, this is really subjective, but more so than anything, this doesn't affect ranking factors. The performance of consumers on your site do. So those engagement metrics, those are going to be the things that will affect your ranking factors in the eyes of search engines. So sessions and traffic, though not important any longer like they used to be, it may be a goal of yours for a very good reason. You might be a new site. Maybe you are in an industry that all of a sudden had a boom of new competitors, making it such a hard space to be in, where you are having to butt heads and often. Just make sure that you are setting this goal of affecting traffic and sessions for a good reason. So pay attention to these few things. If you are trying to set a sessions and traffic goal, maybe it's because of your audience quality, meaning your numbers may look great, but is it the right audience? So looking at behavior metrics and actual conversions. So maybe you have a large amount of traffic coming in and a lot of sessions happening, but it's really not going into the pipeline like you would hope. That means you do want to shift in sessions and traffic. So maybe it wouldn't necessarily be that you want to see a spike, but maybe you want to see your sessions and traffic have a more steady number, and you shift that audience towards being more behaviorally effective, staying on your site longer, having more pages per session, etc. So just making sure that you understand that, if your audience quality isn't there, setting a session or a traffic goal may not be, hey, let's get 10% more month over month. It might actually be, let's see a shift in sessions and traffic, even if it's a decrease, because maybe we're weeding out unqualified traffic that is not going to end up converting anyway. And we want to see that level out as we see behavior metrics spike up. The next thing you want to look at is going to be your industry standard. Again, take a look at your competitors to determine if your traffic should really be a focus. And what I mean when I say this is going to be a couple of things you could look at: organic click-through rate and SERPs for your keywords. So doing a SERPs analysis. So let me explain what those are. Your click-through rate is going to be the amount of clicks that the pages get in search results for particular keywords. And you kind of divide that by how many people are actually seeing the search results for that keyword, so that you can really see the value in that keyword. Is it really worth the pain to work so hard to accomplish to get a particular rank for that keyword just because your competitor has it? When you take a look at the actual click-through rate, is it actually valuable to do so? On top of that, maybe it is valuable, but kind of take a look at the search results, or the SERPs. When you look at those, do you see results of your competitors? Do you see results that kind of align with the company that you are and what you're offering on your site? If you don't, if it's completely the opposite and you realize you'd stick out like a sore thumb, that means that keyword is not targeted towards your audience. And it would be a wasted effort to target that over a keyword that does have results that make sense for you to compete in. So definitely pay attention to that. Those search results and that click-through rate can really show you if it's valuable to try to get particular keywords to boost your traffic. So if you do a high click-through rate on this keyword you're looking to target, the search results line up, okay, that's kind of time when you can say this is a good keyword to target. We do want to target this keyword. We do want to get to this rank, and we want it to help us, boost traffic for this page by this much. That makes a little bit more sense. But like I said, checking your work, making sure the organic click-through rate is worth it, and also checking the search results and making sure it aligns with who you are and what you do. And lastly, just kind of circling back, like audience underperformance. So you're currently attracting more of an audience that never converts. But maybe that audience is there for education. So maybe you're a site that does spend a lot of time focused on content that pushes education and information. That's definitely a good route to go. Dependent on your audience, it can be a good route. But if your audience, your conversion audience, is not the type that needs that much information and education, so you notice you're getting an influx of users who are performing really well on the site, meaning they're staying on the site longer, they're visiting a lot of pages, when you look at it, usually blogs and resources, but they aren't converting because they're not there to convert. They're not there for your product or your service. They're there because you're providing really great information, again, which isn't a bad thing. Those types of engagement metrics can really have a nice impact on your search rankings and your search visibility in the eyes of search engines. So they can be a really important audience to keep around, but obviously at the end of the day, they're not your target audience because they're not converting. So what you want to make sure you're doing is paying attention to that as well. If they're performing well and they're not converting, what is it? Are they an audience that's looking for the education? Like I said, you can kind of notice that if it's an audience that's mainly sticking around your blog or your resources, or are they on your site and they're performing really well? They're staying there for a while. They're visiting a few different pages, and then ultimately, nothing comes of it. That might be time to kind of evaluate what's your next step to really target a better audience, update the site, whatever it might be. You really want to make sure you're looking into these 3 things.